Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to another episode of News Dose, where I keep you up to date with everything going on in the gaming world, and it really seems like somebody opened up the floodgates for Xbox this week. Yesterday, we of course talked about the major announcement for both the specs of the beastly Xbox Series X, as well as some really cool new features for Series X such as smart delivery. I'll just say this again, that really this is such a game changer, but if you missed that episode, go check it out. Now today though, we're going to be talking about an unannounced first-party mystery RPG developed for Xbox, and this one is really exciting, and I'll tell you why here in just a moment. Also, we do have some other Xbox-related content today, such as some new free games, and an Xbox sale is going on right now. But hey, we do have some other stuff to talk about besides just Xbox. We also have a big announcement that will possibly be happening tomorrow by none other than Platinum Games, the developers behind Nier Automata, some big Rainbow Six Siege news, Pokemon may be getting a legitimate competitor, as well as some more key players leaving GDC. So yeah, we do have a big episode ahead of us today, so stay tuned for all of that. Let's kick off the episode with this mysterious Xbox RPG though, because as soon as I saw this, I couldn't help but get excited because this is being developed by the legendary RPG developer Obsidian Entertainment. The same developer who has worked on games like Fallout New Vegas, Pillars of Eternity, and their most recent release, and I'm sure you've probably heard of this one, The Outer Worlds. Honestly, most games that Obsidian has worked on in the past turns out great because Obsidian is some of the best RPG developers in the entire industry. Even games like South Park Stick of Truth is absolutely fantastic, and really I would have never believed that South Park would make for a good RPG, but hey, Obsidian is great at what they do. Of course though, Obsidian was recently acquired and has joined Team Xbox, and since that time they have released The Outer Worlds, which is one of the best RPGs of the entire generation. It kind of reminds me of a mix between something like Mass Effect with Fallout, and yeah, it got several Game of the Year awards. I mean, it was critically acclaimed, and it was an overall success. But this was a game that was being worked on before Microsoft acquired them, and in fact, it was published by Private Division and not Microsoft. Obsidian also announced another new IP here recently, which was Grounded, a small survival RPG. This, from my knowledge, has been more of a passion project for Obsidian by a small team and will be releasing sometimes this summer. I think it looks decent, though I'm not really overly excited for it, but it is going to launch on Xbox Game Pass, so hey, I'll try it out. However, there has been rumors for quite a while now that Obsidian has been working on a third game. A big AAA RPG, and this was even reported on as early as last June because there was some job listings that was talking about their next big RPG. The thing about that though was at the time of those job listings, when they went up, The Outer Worlds hadn't released yet, so some people may have thought the two were related somehow. However, this week, Obsidian put up 32 more job listings, and several of these job listings are talking about a big AAA next-generation RPG that has a focus on melee combat and exceptional gunplay. And I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking this is a sequel to The Outer Worlds, but no, I do not think that this is related to The Outer Worlds at all. Sure, I would love a sequel to The Outer Worlds. It was a great game, and I am absolutely sure we will at some point see it, considering both Obsidian as well as Xbox's first-party head, Matt Booty, has talked about wanting to do a sequel. Regardless, if we consider the timeline here, we know that they have been developing this mystery title since at least last June at the very earliest, and it may have been even earlier than that. The Outer Worlds, of course, didn't release until months later in October, so would they start development on a sequel before even releasing The Outer Worlds? I doubt that, especially since at the time they didn't even know if it would be successful or not, as The Outer Worlds is a new IP. As for this mystery game though, we even know who the narrative lead is for this game, which is Kate Dollarhide, as she at one point in time listed herself as the lead narrative for an unannounced game on both Twitter as well as LinkedIn. This has since been removed from what I can gather, but we also know that the lead narrative for The Outer Worlds is Leonard Boarski. Kate does work on the Outer Worlds as a narrative designer, but that isn't quite the same as a lead narrative, so if you start to link things together, this big unannounced AAA first-person RPG with melee and gunplay combat in it is not related to the Outer Worlds. They also did mention some kind of multiplayer component as well, which could be cooperative gameplay or maybe some kind of competitive, but that remains to be seen. There is one other reason I believe this game is unrelated to the Outer Worlds as well, and that's because insider Klobrille is also saying that Obsidian is working on 3 projects: the Outer Worlds franchise, Grounded, and an unannounced AAA RPG. Klobrille has been a pretty accurate insider for Xbox for a while now, so it does appear that Obsidian is already hard at work on developing their next big RPG for the Xbox Series X, which, if you think about it, the Xbox Series X is really starting to look like a good place to play RPGs next generation. We need to remember that both Playground Games as well as NXL is also working on some of their own AAA RPGs themselves, so this is just good news for RPG fans all around. I do trust Obsidian though. I'm curious as to exactly what this game will end up being, and I wonder how far along it is in development, but I'm sure whatever it is, it'll be well worth the wait. Obsidian, as I said before, they are just phenomenal when it comes to RPG games. Now, staying on topic of Xbox, they have announced several free games through both Xbox Games with Gold as well as Project XCloud. On the Games with Gold side, the March 2020 lineup will be Batman: The Enemy Within, Shantae: Half Genie Hero, Sonic Generations, and Castlevania 2. This is actually a pretty decent lineup, to be honest. Both Shantae and Sonic Generations are really good games, and I would recommend both. Sonic Generations releasing for free the month after the new Sonic movie, that's not a bad strategy either, as I'm sure fans are going to want to play a little Sonic after watching the movie, which was surprisingly very good. The next free games come with Project XCloud, as they casually announced several new games for the beta service on Android devices, including The Plague's Tale, Cities Skyline, Planetfall, Mudrunner, and Journey to the Savage Planet, which literally just released last month. That is immediately worth a try, and honestly, I really enjoyed Journey to the Savage Planet a lot. It's like a weird 3D platforming Metroidvania game. I would highly recommend it. The Plague's Tale, though, I will tell you right now, that is an excellent game, and if for whatever reason you still haven't tried it, go do yourself a favor and check it out, especially if you have Project XCloud. Hey, it's also available on Xbox Game Pass, so there's that as well, but yeah, Project XCloud just keeps getting better and better. I've used it myself and it runs great, but then when you see services like Google Stadia, which is struggling to get new games, and then you have XCloud, which is in beta still, just continue to drop new games in it for free, yeah, good stuff there. Now, the last thing I want to mention about Xbox, I'm going to make this one real brief, but there is an Xbox sale going on right now, which has several really good games in it, including A Plague's Tale, which we just talked about. You have Sonic Mania, and it's only for $10. Doom, Dragon Ball FighterZ, and Nier Automata, among several others. Nier, though, being 50% off, sitting at $20 is an incredible deal, though, and I really do want to highlight that one because it's one of my favorite games of this entire generation, and I think everybody should try it out. It has an excellent story and phenomenal gameplay if you like action RPGs. And speaking of Nier Automata, the developers for Nier, Platinum Games, has been teasing 4 new games for the last month. They have a whole entire website surrounding these 4 new games. They so far have announced a Wonderful 101 remaster with an extremely successful Kickstarter campaign, but they still have 3 more game announcements. Well, in an update on their Platinum 4 teaser website, they are now teasing that information will be coming on the 26th of this month. Now, we already knew that Platinum Games was set to announce something in the Famitsu magazine, which is actually a day later on the 27th, so I'm thinking these 2 announcements could be related. It could also be a time zone difference, but if not, we should be expecting a big Platinum Games announcement tomorrow. As to what it could possibly be, I'm not really sure. It could be a completely new IP, or it could be a sequel to some of their franchises such as Okami, Vanquish, they did just release the Vanquish remaster, it could be another Nier game. I mean, for that matter, it could be a near remaster, which I have speculated on many times on this channel. I would love to see a near Gestalt remaster. All of these would be awesome though, honestly, but what would you like to see Platinum Games do next? Let me know in the comments below. Moving on, more key players have decided to bail out on the upcoming GDC event. Last week, Sony as well as Facebook announced that they were not going to appear at this year's GDC due to the coronavirus epidemic that is going on, and they didn't want to take the risk of having their employees affected for events such as this. Sony really was the big one missing though, as it did spark a lot of angry fans who is now questioning Sony's silence, but I think it's important to also talk about others who are skipping out on GDC as well. In this case, Kojima Productions has also announced that they will not be going to GDC for the same reason, noting the coronavirus. And I know people will of course point out that the coronavirus really isn't widespread in the United States, but at the end of the day, there is always going to be some kind of risk, even if it is minimal. As a gamer, it's saddening to see Sony not be there, and really the fact that GDC seems like it won't be all that great this year, but nonetheless, it is about safety first. Sony skipping on GDC and PAX East though has garnered so much attention though that even the mayor of Boston has asked Sony to reverse their PAX East decision and has urged them to come to PAX East because they should act out of facts rather than fear. He even says that by not going, it opens up some kind of stereotype against Japanese people. I'm not really sure about all that, but I don't think Sony is going to reverse anything. Sure, their silence is going to be scrutinized, but in the case of health, I'm not going to criticize anybody. In other news, TemTem has had an extraordinary amount of success for being an early access game and an exclusive title for PC at that. If you're unaware of what TemTem is, it's that game that looks suspiciously a lot like Pokemon, but here's the thing. Unlike many other Pokemon clones, this is actually a good game. A really good game, in fact. I reviewed the early access version last year on this channel and I came away very impressed. It is very similar to Pokemon, but it has enough differences to separate itself, and it seems to be focused on a little bit more of the mature crowd with characters cursing and such. I also really like the monster designs, but I digress. TemTem has now officially sold 500,000 units, which is pretty incredible for an early access game. I mean, you also have to realize that it's only on the PC platform as well, so I'm thinking when this does come out of early access and releases for other platforms including Xbox, PlayStation, and the Switch, this game is going to be a big-time indie seller. I mean, it's not going to sell, Pokemon numbers, but, I think especially on the Switch, it's going to sell well, and I do hope it does. It's a great game, and hey, maybe Game Freak can look at TemTem and take a few ideas from it. Competition breeds excellence after all. Either way, I do highly encourage you to go play TemTem when it does release on whatever platform you prefer to play on. Now, the last thing I want to talk about real quick is some big Rainbow Six Siege news. According to game director Leroy Athanasoff, they would love to make Rainbow Six Siege into a free-to-play game at some point, which would be an absolutely huge move. I've said this several times, but I think Siege is one of the best, if not the very best, competitive multiplayer game on the market. It's such a great and unique tactical multiplayer shooter, so if it became free to play and allowed anybody to jump in, that would be a big deal. Siege is already a really big game, but by being free to play, it would grow even more. Though Leroy did say that in order to do this, they would have to have certain features in place. As an example, he mentioned that they would need to find a way of stopping more skillful players of making a secondary account, to take advantage of lesser skilled players. This is known as smurfing, and it can make for a really bad experience for new players and others who just don't have the same skill. So from what I'm hearing, while they would love to make it free to play, they want to do it the right way, which is exactly what I like to hear. Anyways though, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget to hit the bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Peace out.